Welcome to the Twigg and Jenkins podcast. We're your hosts, Carri Twigg, Brad Jenkins. We've got like 45 days left. We are hopped up. I am hopped up on the post-debate bump. Twigg and I have been talking about how, the Kamala spaceship. I'm really bad at metaphors, guys.
What? Trajectory?
When she took over
Yeah.
for our guy, Joey Blue Eyes,
Yep.
it was like a spaceship, man. Her polls just kept going up.
Yeah, man. Straight
kept
up.
going up. And then it kind of cratered. There's a moment.
Okay. Plateaued. We're not gonna go. Didn't go
Not
down.
cratered. Not
Yeah,
cratered.
It
Sorry.
plateaued.
It plateaued around the convention.
Yeah.
And we were waiting for this debate because we knew that this was the opportunity for us to go back up. And it is. And so very quickly, state of the race, state of the polls, Carri Twigg, things are looking good. In Arizona, Trump is up 1.6. In Nevada, Kamala's up 0.2. In Wisconsin, Kamala's up 1.2. In Michigan, Kamala is up 1.7.
Huge.
Let's fucking go. In Pennsylvania, Kamala's up 1. In North Carolina, Trump is only up 0.1, which is great. And in Georgia, Trump is up 1.7. For all intents and purposes, Kamala is the clear battleground state favorite among the Electoral College.
Yeah, but that's a margin of error, dead heat.
Yeah, but yeah, good point. But those numbers are great.
And they're going in the right direction.
They're going
which
in the right
is
direction.
Best to your really clunky metaphor.
Spaceship. It's because we have this UFO behind you, and I'm just in this, anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to dig a little bit deeper. We're going to go look a little further afield next time we want to draw a metaphor. But that is really exciting. And I was watching CNN, which I almost never do.
Wow, look at you.
I know, because I watched the Oprah reboot featuring Kamala Harris last night. And then it just sort of, I wanted to see how people were talking about it. And so I watched CNN, and there was someone, S.E. Cupp was talking about how there's a Florida poll out that says that Kamala's ahead by 5 points in Florida.
There is a Florida poll out. There's there's also a Texas poll that has Kamala down 2. So,
in striking distance.
Polls are wild. This is why I love polling, because you'll get a poll that says Kamala's up 5 in Florida, but then you'll get another poll tomorrow that'll have Trump up 8.
I mean, if she won all those states and dunked on him in his home state of Florida, which I love that kind of victory, plus Texas, I mean, you were looking at like a McGovern era style landslide for all of our Gen Z and Gen Alphas. That was 1968.
It's been a while. Been a moment.
When the Democratic candidate lost in a total landslide. But that would be, was it 1968 or was it 72?
The McGovern race?
Yeah.
I think that was 72.
72. Anyway.
We don't have fact checkers here.
Yeah.
Just say some shit. You see.
We're close. We're in the ballpark. I'm in the margin of error. 68, 72.
Yeah.
Give or take an election. But I mean, that, I think, to me, I think I said this in an earlier episode, I can't tell whether this could be a squeaker or this could be a total blowout, and both feel entirely possible.
Both are entirely possible.
At this moment in time.
The term that has been coming up repeatedly in the past few days since we last spoke to you is also October surprise. October surprise. So the other thing that we just don't know is we know there will be some leak, some misdirection, some scandal that will be dropped. It just happens every election cycle, I think. We have no idea what this could look like. We don't know if it'll be manufactured. We don't know if it will be a real scandal.
Right.
But we know that it's coming. We also saw, not related to the presidential campaign, but there's a North Carolina Senate race where October surprise or September surprise.
Oh my God, this guy, are you kidding me?
Just took place.
What an embarrassment.
We also had a little bit of a scandal on the journalistic side with RFK Jr. and Olivia Newsy. So, you know, a lot can
I don't know
happen.
what that is. What's that?
Oh, you didn't see this. Olivia Newsy, who is a reporter for the New Yorker or the New York Magazine, was just suspended for her relationship with RFK Jr., her personal relationship with RFK Jr.
Sexy relationship, allegedly?
Oh, no, they both admit to it.
Okay, rumored affair.
So there was an investigation. She covered RFK Jr. She wrote a profile of him. That's how they met during the primary when he was running for president. And then they developed feelings for each other. And so she's been suspended.
How very John Edwards of you, RFK. As if Cheryl Hines has not been through enough.
That's what I was just thinking of Cheryl, to be honest. It's like, this poor woman.
No, I miss that. I don't. My salacious gossip has really been focused on like Shannon Sharp and obviously this like Diddy indictment, which is bananas and so much more than salacious gossip. Not to be reductive about it. So I missed and I don't care about RFK Jr.
It just happened last night, like 10:30, 11 o'clock last night.
There's no way I would have heard about it.
Yeah, the only reason I know is because I'm so tired from my trip to Alaska and I am
jet lagged.
Just operating off of vibes and fumes right now, people. It was great. The
vibes are high though. I will say congratulations.
I appreciate you. The vibes are high. But here's the thing I did miss that you saw was the Oprah special. I missed it completely. This is a rare scenario in which there is media consumption that I have not seen that Carri will fill me in on. But this is great. So tell me about the Oprah special. If you were to grade it, you know, scale of 1 to 10, what would you grade it? Tell us all about it.
I would grade it for what it set out to accomplish. I graded a 10. I thought it was extraordinarily well produced. I think it did delivered exactly on what the promise of it was. Will it change anyone's mind? Will it turn out any voters? I don't know about any of that. Right. But as a exercise in solidifying and buoying the base, I thought it was spectacular.
Great.
I heard about it initially. As we know, I don't consume that much stuff, but I do, which is so great, which makes me such an excellent podcaster. I do these weekly calls with the campaign, and we can talk more about those, but they had mentioned that they were attempting to make like the biggest rally of all time, and they really framed it as a rally, which I thought was a choice to make, because it didn't actually turn out to be a rally.
It didn't look like a rally. It looked like an Oprah show.
No, it was like an Oprah the Oprah Winfrey Show reboot.
Right.
But part of it came out of, and the tea from the call was that Oprah did not want to do like a Black women for or a women for Kamala or she didn't want to do a demographic style.
Do you know
thing.
Why?
She wanted everyone to be together.
She is the biggest fan of the Twigg and Jenkins podcast, and so Oprah's been listening to us every week say, "Let's get out of these silos," and she's like, "You know what? Here's what we need to do. We got to listen to Carri and Brad."
And do it.
And she called it the Unity. What's she called?
So it was called like the Unity Rally.
Unity Rally. Okay.
And featuring Oprah Winfrey. And what it really was the Oprah Show 2024 featuring Kamala Harris.
Cool.
But it was cool. And so it was this hybrid in studio thing where they had the Kamala and Oprah sitting together in conversation. And then Oprah was running the show, right? So She was kicking to pre-recorded packages. There were some of the people who were at the convention who were there in the audience, who would tell personal stories that spoke to specific issues. So I think her name was Hadley, the incest survivor from the convention. She was there and told her story again.
They just released an ad of her too, which is really beautiful ad.
Absolutely. The mother and two sisters of a young woman who died after she didn't get care. She bled out after seeking an abortion. And she was in Georgia, and the doctors just left her for 20 hours because there's a life imprisonment component to the abortion ban
right.
In Florida. A young woman who'd been in a school shooting, who herself had been shot, and her mother and father were there. And then also celebrities like Tracy Ellis Ross and Meryl Streep and Julia Roberts and Ben Stiller and Chris Rock.
Whoa. Slow down. Whoa. Slow down. That was a murderer's row. Wait a second.
Yeah, man.
Meryl Streep.
This is what I'm telling you.
Julia Roberts.
Yes. Tracy Ellis Ross. Ben Stiller. None of this was were they doing promotion about these names? No, they were surprises.
So these were surprises. Okay.
And I think they were surprises to like keep people on the hook to watch the whole stream. Right. It was about 90 minutes, almost 2 hours. And so they did that thing where they interweave, much like the convention, they interweave sort of your average American with real people, as they're called sometimes, and then these celebrities who also then ask questions. So that was something that was really interesting. There was a combination of, like, Meryl Streep asked a question about the peaceful transfer of power, which I was like, who knew Meryl cared about the peaceful transfer of power? Tracy Ellis Ross spoke directly to my arch nemesis, J.D. Vance, and his childless cat ladies, and was like, you do not have to push a baby out of you to push for the advancements of this country.
Love that.
So she was extraordinary. Julia Roberts talked about how Kamala Harris helps restore her like sense of patriotism and that Donald Trump's an embarrassment. Yeah, so it was really
beautiful.
It was really beautiful TV. I think it was streamed on YouTube, which I know you have some thoughts about, and I think they're important to share. But it was really, I mean, they nailed it. It doesn't get her off the hook for, I think, media appearances overall.
Correct.
I maintain my opinion that she needs to be doing more press.
Agreed.
But it was, for what it was great.
I think also what you just laid out was very exciting because all of those are clippable, right? So each of those moments with those
100%
names.
And they're already out. I mean, and they were doing a good job of getting like reels and TikToks out real time.
That's great. But you're right. But I think, was everyone in the audience female? Was it like, it was like an Oprah show?
It was mostly female. Mostly women. There were men in the audience, but it was very much a exercise in talking to the base.
Got it.
The strategy that we're seeing of running up the score with women, which is, the inverse of the Trump agenda of running up the score with men. It was very much that.
Smart.
And so, again, I don't know that it expanded the pool, but I think it shored up the pool.
I think first off, Oprah, what a G. I mean,
Oprah's a legend. Yeah.
Fact that she did that, and I'm sure I haven't seen it yet, but to your point on what she's so very good at is creating, speaking of vibes, she's very good at creating an authentic vibe where people, I'm sure, were able to be vulnerable, were able to share in a setting like that where it didn't feel staged or manipulative, right? And then to incorporate talent in that way can be tricky, right? And I think that because I didn't see, this is also the way I consume media too, because I didn't watch the Oprah thing at all, but of course I was consuming the responses to it.
Right.
So I was seeing the tweets from Megyn Kelly, I was seeing the tweets from Charlie Kirk and all these guys just calling it a out of touch celebrity love fest. This has nothing to do with what most Americans are feeling, but we're just describing as the opposite. That the talent was there, but the focus seemed to be on these everyday people and their stories. The one thing I was curious about was, is this one and done? Are they going to do more of these, do you think?
I hope they do.
Okay.
I hope they do. I think they're a really good use of the resource that she has in these shiny people relationships.
Yes.
So Kamala Harris has known Julia Roberts for like 20 years or something because of Doug and just like being in California. And so
meaning Doug represents her?
I think maybe he did, or he was an entertainment lawyer.
No, I know. I'm just curious.
Yeah. I don't know what the formalities of it were. But listen, I think the right is always going to criticize anyone who has celebrities or famous people in their camp. We saw that with Barack Obama. Like,
Yes.
John McCain's big hit on him was that he was a celebrity. It's
Yes.
like Barack Obama is not a serious person. He's a celebrity.
Right.
And Trump has such whack surrogates and such.
Yeah, they
like
have
Ted Nugent and like Chris Rock. Not Chris Rock. What's his name?
Kid Rock.
Kid Rock. I am a bull god. And so I think that they're just going to be dismissive of that no matter what.
True.
But one of the things that they did a really good job of, and I think the show format did such a good job of, was saying, like, you can find and build community in political spaces.
Love that.
And so the same things that Julia Roberts concerned about, you're concerned about, Deborah, mom from Philly or what have you, and putting them together in shared common concern and common purpose, I think makes people, especially women, feel more at home, at ease, and willing to be participatory in a political process that often feels really contentious and or like, well, am I the only one? Am I going to be? So that community, I think, is really valuable.
And there's no better person for that than Oprah. Because why not? Let us critique Oprah. No, my only critique would be the platform choice was maybe not as strategic.
I think this is super interesting. You should go into this.
Well, because two things. One, it was not because they did not mention all of the celebrities and those were surprise guests, right? So you had these very big names that are on there. But even if they were to have promoted those names, none of those people are streamers. None of those people have really big platforms on YouTube or on, I don't know, was it also on Twitch or was it on any other, was it just on YouTube?
I think it was like Instagram Live.
Okay.
And YouTube. So a full on millennial and above approach.
Yeah. And that's the reason why you have Oprah, right? Because I think for anyone under the age of, let's just call it 30, I don't know that Oprah really has as much resonance, right?
Totally. I'm 38. I'm the tail end of Oprah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would have, if it were me, I would have really had this on network television, in my opinion, because I think putting together that constellation of stars and having Oprah, you're really speaking to your base, and you're really speaking to soccer moms. You're speaking to, moms and millennials, and they are just not on streaming YouTube. Right. Like that's not their platform of choice. And you could see it is the other thing. And again, this is just something that the right pointed out. The views of it live were not great. They were averaging about 10,000 views, 10,000 people consecutively watching it live.
On YouTube?
On YouTube.
There was this little ticker when I was watching, and it was like in the 90s to 100,000.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe it was being misrepresented.
Okay.
Because I think that there were a couple of tweets where someone was comparing the number of people watching to like other streamers and like Hassan Piker or others, and they were actually getting more views than the actual Oprah thing. But that could have just been a snapshot. So maybe it did get
And
more.
To be fair, I also joined about 35 minutes in.
Got it. So maybe that's what it looked like.
So maybe it just took a while to build.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to your point, even because it was initially billed, I think, as a Zoom call, and then I got sent. Then the link took me to a YouTube live stream. But like my mom was texting me, and she was like, "Honey, after I click the link, will they be able to see me?" Like she didn't She didn't
realize it was like a show,
right?
Yes,
because it was like this Zoom rally, so we'd been billed as this thing, but then also it's still relatively new technology, and to your point, to so many people, and so to your point, it's if it was going to be for this older audience, just making it a show on network TV that they know how to interact with.
Yeah, because we did that. I mean, I remember what was at the Reelect. Like, I think we just bought out an hour, right? On, was it ABC or CBS or something?
So.
And we just called it the Obama special. And It was post convention, post debate, and it was sort of what we just saw, or I didn't see it.
Right.
But there's still 40 some days left. Maybe they'll do it again. I think that I would love for them, if they're gonna do that again, get younger people who are really popular on these platforms to be a part of the show as well. So, I think it would have been smart for them to have our friend Liza Koshy on the show, because she has so many people that follow her on those platforms that you probably would have had higher numbers if you had those people included in some shape or form.
Right.
But I'm excited to watch it. I think that, we have not talked really at all. We talked a little bit about the Taylor Swift of it all, but what is your take on these weekly calls? Like, how is the Kamala campaign doing with, I guess the term now is creator outreach from your perspective? You and I have both worked in this field and industry for many years, so we have lots of hot takes, but do you think the Kamala campaign is doing a good job on this stuff?
It's always so hard to tell, and I'm always sort of loath to give blanket opinions because there's so many things that, as we've discussed, I don't pay a ton of attention to. And so there's a lot of things that people are doing that just don't make it to my algorithm, but that are really probably smart and not for me, and so I just don't hear about them. And even though I'm on these weekly calls with the campaign, it's not as though they are comprehensive of everything that they're doing, right? But I think they're clear-eyed about what needs to happen at this point, which is that anyone with a platform needs to be activated and be given a specific and targeted ask to participate in a particular way. And that came up a lot last night in the Oprah special, over and over. It was like, this is your invitation to get involved and to do something and to be a part of this campaign and to do something for the people whose stories you've now heard tonight.
I love that.
And they have mentioned that she's not doing big donor fundraisers anymore. Like, she's got a couple more fundraisers, and then you're not going to see her in LA or San Francisco or New York City.
Wait, they mentioned that on the Oprah?
No. This is on the campaign call.
On the campaign call. Got it.
It's just like they are so locked in on battleground states, on being able to sort of run up the electoral votes. She has the money she needs.
I mean, keep
giving
guys,
money.
She raised all the money.
Yeah, but like, she's no
more money to raise.
She's gonna be fine on cash.
Yeah.
But voters still have to get to know her. Yeah. And so how they're going to be able to do that, and how we're continuing to kind of litigate the campaign in a way that is, I think, very obviously now not between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, but between staying at home and Kamala Harris.
Yes.
And so that is where influence can actually be really important. Agreed. I think if it were trying to use celebrities to convince you of something you already know about Donald Trump, or to convince you that Kamala Harris should be elected instead of Donald Trump, I don't know that that's a super effective strategy. I think that celebrities and influencers can put cultural cachet and like coolness and sexiness around voting, right? Agreed. And again, it's sort of like, are you voting? Then you're in my world. We are the same. Like, that, I think, is where it can be useful.
I think there's that, and I think the other part that I hope that they do more of, and I hope that now that Kamala's not doing as many fundraisers or just more time for her, is the piece that you keep talking about, which is there are still a lot of young people, in particular, people out there who just don't know her that well. And the one thing I'm a little bit afraid of is the success of our rallies. Sounds like we've got a rally outside of our podcast studio as we speak. But the success of the Kamala rallies is exciting, but I do think we're getting into this area of trying to compete with the Trump rallies, right?
Oh, interesting.
Because I've seen there's a New York Times piece kind of comparing crowd sizes. I think Kamala, that was one of the harshest critiques that she made of Trump at the debate, was her attacking him because of his bullshit rallies and how people are leaving halfway through. And so when they say she's going to be out there in battleground states more, I hope that doesn't mean that she's just going to be doing rallies. Because in my humble opinion, I don't know, we're not going to win by trying to do rallies like Donald Trump. Because one, Donald Trump had huge rallies against Joe Biden. Joe Biden was doing just Zoom call after Zoom call from his basement
in Delaware.
But he was doing it very effectively, and Joe Biden won, right? And so I think that the opportunity is, could Kamala just spend a couple of days just lining up sort of interview after interview after interview after interview with talent, trusted voices, authors, creators like Ayanna. Like, how dope would it be
So
if Kamala
incredible.
and Ayanna could have just like an IG live where they're just talking about climate for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, right? But think about that, the version of that, the time and effort and scale and money that's spent on these rallies. You're not convincing anyone by a rally. There's no persuadables going to a rally.
Right.
The rallies are to shore folks up. They're going to vote anyway, right? So if the political strategy right now is, how do we grab these, 40 to 50,000 white men in these specific areas, but then also let's not forget the 40 to 50,000 potentially first-time voters.
Yeah.
Sporadic voters, young people that could also be voting as well. There should just be an equal amount of time. If you're going to focus on the rallies, great. Spend just as much time with getting Kamala on all of these platforms, because in my humble opinion, you're going to reach so many more people. Do what Trump is doing with Logan Paul, Aiden Ross, do that version. And you don't, in my humble opinion, I don't think Kamala needs to actually physically go to these podcast studios or to these offices. I think a lot of people like Ayanna would go to her.
Yeah.
So if Kamala's going to Michigan, Kamala's going to Georgia, invite Ayanna. I love how I'm Ayanna's PR person. But invite her there, right? And do these things in person. But we really need to focus, I think, on young people. I think, and rallies don't do that.
Right.
They just don't.
Yeah. I mean, we've been saying it. It's just people need an opportunity to, they still just feel like they don't know her as well. There's nothing you can tell anyone about Trump at this point. He's this known quantity. There's nothing you can say. There's nothing he can say that is surprising. There's no sort of new low for him to sink towards, but it's this introduction to her that I think will continue through Election Day. I mean, people start voting really soon.
Yeah.
And she has to really up some of that candidate ID. And to your point, rallies aren't going to do it.
Yeah. More intimate settings would be good too. How's our guy JD Vance doing?
I hate this man.
I know I don't know that we've done a full-on JD Vance segment in a minute, but he has been laser focused on
Springfield, Ohio.
Has been laser focused on, your guys. I know you guys love your home state of Ohio.
No, he doesn't love Ohio. I love Ohio.
You love Ohio.
He does not love Ohio. He doesn't give a shit about Ohio, very obviously. The mayor has asked him to please stop. The governor of Ohio has asked him to please stop. The people of the town have asked him to please stop. The father of the child who kicked this whole thing off, who died, has asked him to stop. He doesn't give a shit about Ohio.
Yeah.
This dude is absolutely the total worst.
Yeah.
And he came out this week and someone fact checked him, was like, what you were saying about Springfield is not true. And this person said, I don't care if I have to keep making up stories.
Yes.
I will do it to alert people to what's going on. I mean, I cannot.
And God bless Dana Bash. She was so patient with him because he said, create stories.
Yeah.
He's live on CNN.
Yes.
She let him say that phrase and continue. And then she was just like, excuse me, let's just go back a second to that term you just used, create stories. So you're saying you're creating stories. He doubled down on it. He said,
Yes.
Yeah, we're creating stories.
So he doesn't give a goddamn about Ohio.
Yeah.
And or anyone but himself, very obviously, and Donald Trump. And so they are going to Ohio. Trump announced that he's going to come to Springfield and he's going to throw a rally that is putting people in danger.
Yeah.
That there have been bomb threats to offices. Schools have been shut down multiple days in a row because of bomb threats that keep coming in. I mean, it is so... What they are doing is so irresponsible and fundamentally disqualifying to be a civic leader of any kind, to be a business leader, to be any type of leadership role, any type of role of authority. It should be fundamentally disqualifying. I hope J.D. Vance is chased out of Ohio. I mean, this guy is the worst.
He's the worst. He also got called out. Anymore. It's not even funny. It is alarming. He also got called out. Did you see this clip? He was at a rally. It was not in Ohio. And someone, I don't know if it was a reporter or someone in the audience who had a microphone, they pushed back on what Vance said because Vance was referring to the Haitian migrants as illegal aliens.
Oh, yeah.
And this person in the audience said, "Sir, you know that they're not illegal aliens."
Yeah. He said he doesn't care.
And he said to the person, "Technically, you're right, but I don't care. I'm going to call them illegal aliens." And again, it's just this hubris of we know that by us using these phrases, we are going to fire up our base. We're going to get them in a froth. We're going to get them in a rage. And that is our key to victory. The only way that we can win is to lie to our base. Is the way that I took that. I mean, he said, "I know technically you're right, but I'm going to keep calling them illegal aliens."
Yes. Yeah.
This is where we're at in our rhetoric.
Right.
And did Trump say when this rally?
I think it's as soon as this weekend. Jeez, I mean, Louise. I don't know. I'm supposed to go to Ohio in the next couple days, and it's just like I can't even. It's really bad, and it's really destabilizing. And the only way we can get rid of this dude, like, this win has to be so decisive.
Agreed.
Like, I'm hauling my ass to Philly. I'm so fired up now. I'm swearing.
Let's go.
I'm basically getting a place in Philly and going to be there for the duration of the election.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to do. It's like I can't even stomach the idea of going back to LA.
Yeah.
My very breezy surfer yoga life is coming to an end, a temporary end for a few weeks.
Yeah,
because
just a sabbatical.
If I can help at all, it has to, like, we all have to do.
Yes.
Like, she needs to win with 300 electoral votes. Like, It needs to be decisive. It needs to be immediate. If it is by a margin and it's dragged out in the courts until December and January or God knows how long, like, we're going to be dealing with this same type of bullshit from them for years and years to come.
Yes, because they will get a mandate, or they will get the positive feedback, which is in the term of votes.
Yeah.
That this kind of stuff works. That it still works. That lies work. And, you know, what do you think? The one thing that I love about all this, though, is like the glimpses of humanity and love, because there's this beautiful image of a Haitian restaurant in Springfield, Ohio, that was packed to the brim.
Yeah.
Right. All like community, like the community seeing what's happening, being like, fuck all of this noise.
Yeah.
We're going to support this Haitian restaurant. And I think that, you know, we shouldn't be afraid. I don't think that Kamala should do like a competing rally or something in Springfield, Ohio. No. Like I wouldn't suggest anything to that end. But I do think this is a beautiful moment to lift up the Haitian community.
Yeah.
I think this is a beautiful moment. I mean, there have been, you know, celebrities and there have been talent who have been vocal about their own Haitian community and their, you know, Haitian mother, Haitian fathers. That's been quite beautiful. I think that it would be smart for the campaign or for outside organizations to not be afraid of this. Like, that's the one thing, right?
Yes.
We've been saying it since the beginning of this podcast. We have to be able to be unafraid to have hard conversations, because when we're afraid of having the hard conversations, this is what comes in.
Right.
this just frothing, lying rage comes in. And, I think Kamala has made some great statements, but I think, having more surrogates out there talking about this, I think would be great.
I agree with that. And I think even in a broader sense, to your point, it's like Democrats can stand to be just tougher across the board, and it doesn't necessarily. And I have a critique around the ways that being tough is often conflated with violence, right? Like either super hawkish foreign policy, or even in the Oprah thing. Oprah was like, girl, I didn't know you had a gun,
No way. They talked about it.
Yeah. And Kamala, this has been memed everywhere. Kamala was like, if you break into my house, you're getting shot.
Whoa.
And it was like this funny moment, but it was also, again, super jarring because it came right after the school shooting section. There was like a girl in the audience who was still bandaged from being shot. Like it was a little
interesting.
It was a little cringe. But that, and yet if you take that out of its context of the conversation and have it as a standalone meme, like having the Democratic nominee for president should be like, I will shoot you.
Yeah.
Is at least a departure of so much of what we've seen Democrats and liberals be willing to do and talk about. Now, I think that we have to find a better road, a better way to communicate strength without it being like Joe Biden punching Donald Trump in the face, or Kamala threatening to shoot you. And like this stuff has to stop. And they are so comfortable and so flagrant about their way of communicating strength and toughness, and like we have to find ours without trying to parrot or mimic theirs.
Agreed.
But it is refreshing to see. Just be like, cut it out, cut the shit. Like this is completely ridiculous, and you're messing with the wrong one.
Yes.
Like in me, you found the wrong person to mess with, and that I'm really here for, because this is too far. It has to stop. It can't keep escalating.
I completely agree. And piggybacking off of what you were saying before about your decision, you're like, look, I'm going to Philly, and here's what I'm going to do. One thing I think I got an interesting, I think it was either a DM or it must have been a DM from someone who listens to the pod, the dozens of you, God bless, who it was sort of a in my opinion, I love that it was such a basic question, but it was essentially like, what does volunteering even look like? Like there are a lot of people who have no idea what volunteering even means. And so one thing I thought I would do here probably, or maybe this will be really boring and basic, but I don't think people realize what a field campaign even does.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And to take just a step back.
You want to take that? No,
I won't. To take a step back, what campaigns do, so much of the money that's being raised, right? Like we're reporting on how much money the campaign is being raised. That money, yes, a lot of it goes to ads, but a lot of it is also going to building out an infrastructure across every one of these battleground states, where the first phase of the campaign is just identifying voters, right? Meaning we want to know in a battleground state like Michigan, where are our voters and where are Trump voters?
Right.
A lot of it is just voter ID, right? And ranking them. So it's not just Trump voters and Harris voters, it's real Trump voters. Like Trump voters, we're voting for Donald Trump, right?
Right.
And then real Kamala Harris voters. And it's essentially a scorecard, right? It's like, this person is definitely voting for us. This person is leaning towards us, or this person is undecided. And then there's a version of that on the Trump side. So once you do all of that voter ID, in order to do that voter ID, it's knocking doors, it's texting, it's phone banking to ID all of these voters. And then the second phase of the campaign is persuasion, where you're trying to move those people up the ladder. So if they're a 1 or a 2 or a 3, how do we move them higher up the chain?
Yeah.
Right? And then the last phase, which is the phase Carri's describing, which is that get out the vote phase, is it's not persuasion anymore. It's not identifying anymore. It's just turnout. So we know where all of our voters are. These are all the people we know who are going to vote for Kamala Harris or who are leaning and probably going to vote for Kamala Harris, and making sure that all of them have a plan to vote. All of them have a ride to the polls. All of them know that they can early vote. All of them know where their polling location is.
Yeah.
All of that work.
Have a babysitter.
Yeah. Like what time in the day are you going to vote?
Yeah.
Do you need a babysitter?
Yeah.
Like, we're not kidding. Like, it gets that granular, block by block, street by street. Precinct captains are counting every single vote matters.
Yeah.
Every single vote matters. And to build that infrastructure takes so many people. It takes so much work.
So much work.
And if you're sitting at home and you're like, look, I'm not doing anything. I could take a few days off work, or I can take a vacation for 3 days. Go to Philly. Go
to Pennsylvania. Find a field office, and then they will give you like voters to call to help figure that out. And two things I would add to that was a really elegant breakdown. Two things I would add to that is one of the reasons why the identifying voters is so important is that people will surprise you. In 2004, the Carri campaign just assumed that Black people were going to vote Democratic, right? The George Bush campaign, Karl Rove very brilliantly put the Defense of Marriage ballot initiative on the Ohio ballot, which was basically enshrining in the state constitution that marriage could only be between a man and a woman. And the Carri campaign did not do a good job of accurately IDing their voters and only focused on turnout. And so they sent buses and they picked all these little Black ladies up in Cleveland, drove them to vote, and they voted for George Bush because they were religiously conservative and had yet to be moved along a path of understanding about marriage equality. And over and over again, we have seen that happen.
Yes.
We have seen Democrats take for granted who their voters are. And so we've gotten better about, and Barack Obama was insistent on this, was like, no, know who is where, because he's shaking up the demographics of the election. And so if you don't know who people are, you make these really rookie avoidable mistakes of making assumptions of people based on some demographic information, and then spending resources to drive them to the polls, and they vote for someone else.
Yes.
So like there is that. That's why that's so important. But I also think one of the other things about this work is that it can be really fun.
It's
and
so
you
fun.
and I talk about this all the time.
It's so fun.
It can be lit. Like, it can be so fun to go canvas with your friends. There's a big canvas happening in Philly on October 5th. Mm-hmm. That DM us if you want the link for. And it's like, we're already planning the after party. We're planning, like, there's going to be a tail. There's all this great stuff that can happen. And giving people an opportunity to participate, make some friends, find your tribe, get with the homies, have a little adventure, go talk about, politics and go meet some people. It's so fun.
It's really fun, especially in that get out the vote phase. I will say that, the voter ID, or I should say like IDing folks, that's a little bit more challenging, right? Like it can be dicey. It can be a little bit dicey. It could be a little bit intimidating.
It's for our extroverts. If you're gonna knock on doors, sometimes I get it.
To knock on a door and to not know how that's going to be received can be intimidating. But if you're a novice and you've never done this, get out the vote is fun.
It's fun
because every door you're hitting are people that are on your squad.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of high fives. There's a lot of thank yous. There's a lot of, I remember last cycle we were in Virginia and we were sort of near the Virginia Beach area. And I kid you not, the enthusiasm, like, we did this sort of early shift of doing mailers and just making sure people knew where their polling location was. But we would hit doors and women, like 80-year-old Black women had just come back. And they're so excited. Yeah. They're like, I got my vote in, and thank you for what you're doing. Like, people are generous, and people are thankful for this volunteer work. And I think especially in this day and age where we're so disconnected because of these freaking phones, we're so disconnected because of social media, I think that we lose sight of how important this door knocking is.
Yeah.
Like how important. I love that people are doing text campaigns. Text campaigns are great. These numbers are so inflated though. I saw some group, they're like, we reach 1 million people. It's like, okay, well, they're essentially like robo-texts.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I think that that's great. I mean, it's good
left
that
on red, baby.
people
Left on
are
red.
getting text messages. But we really do need to get outside of our homes. We need to actually talk to people because there is a ripple effect. The other thing I will say is, especially in some of these areas, Western Pennsylvania is a really great example where you may be the only Harris voter on your entire block.
Yeah.
Right? Having volunteers or having a strong field office really buoys someone. It gives them the confidence to put a Harris yard sign in their lawn, right? And there's a ripple effect when you see enthusiasm. And a lot of that does come from, unfortunately, it comes from out-of-staters. Yeah. Right? I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to go. Like, I'm not from Pennsylvania, so I don't want to go to Pennsylvania. Not true. Like, there's so much work to be done that for the voters and also for the organizers and volunteers who've been doing that work, they need help. Right. Too. Like, there's so much work. Speaking of mailers, just it sounds kind of boring, but just the work around organizing all of that lit, right? It sounds kind of mundane, but door hangers work, reminders work. And
absolutely. And that's a great point. It's not, the campaign work is not limited to knocking on doors and phone calls. That is that is really valuable. People who can and will go knock on other people's doors, but all of that needs to be organized. People need to drive. Everyone needs to eat. Everyone needs, like, there's so many things you can do and so many ways you can help if you're not comfortable yet knocking on someone's door.
That's right.
And again, that's also really fun. Like,
really
that's
fun.
how I started I was the office manager for a campaign in like 2003 and would organize all the lit and then cheer on all the volunteers and make sure they had water and make sure they had fresh lists and we weren't doubling up on things, and then getting the data from the calls and from the door knocking entered into the system. And I would like make little stars for like the best volunteers if you got your name on the wall.
Oh, yeah, got the leaderboard going.
Absolutely. I'm always
fun.
Trying to make everything a contest.
Yeah.
And so and that part of that was because I was always really shy. Yeah. And I still am quite shy about canvassing. Right. I am like, part of me is a little bit of a wasp, like you just don't talk to strangers about politics. You don't want to interrupt anybody. Sure. I don't want to bother anybody. And I certainly don't want to like talk to a stranger about politics, not polite dinner conversation. Right. And so part of me gets very uptight or just nervous and shy about that. And I will basically do anything I can instead of canvassing, and yet it is so effective that I always bring myself to do it eventually. But it's like, I have to warm up. I have to like get into the vibe.
You do have to get into the vibe. And the thing that I tell first time volunteers, because I used to have to do these like canvas launches and like fire people up, is we really are there to make things happen for these voters. We're not there to try to persuade them. Yeah. We're there. It's almost like a concierge service. Like, how can we help you get to the polls? And I think if you think of it that way, it feels a lot more fulfilling as well, because there are a lot of times where you'll knock on a door and someone will say, actually, I do need a ride. Yeah. I do need a ride. Totally. And you're like, great. Got and you, there are people that can get you a ride. There are now also, God bless Uber and Lyft, there are also now services that provide free rides to the polls, right? But the campaign infrastructure is there because there are so many barriers to voting, unfortunately. Yeah. We've made voting, thanks to our Republican friends, way more complicated and way more hard than it needs to be. And so any ways that we could help reduce those barriers or help people get to the polls, like, we just have to do it.
And you're right that like every time I've gone canvassing, my worst fears that someone's going to like chase me off their yard have never come to fruition. And even some of the horror stories, a guy I was dating in 2007, he was canvassing for Barack Obama in Iowa.
God bless.
In the primary, and he knocked on some guy, black guy, Riaz's black guy, and he knocked on someone's door, and he was like, "Sir, like, do you know who you're voting for?" And he was like, "Well, I'm not voting for a woman, so I'm going to vote for the like full use."
Oh yeah.
And Riaz was standing there like as a black person, which is like, cool, Great. Okay. Well, gonna mark you as like a 1 for Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And it was, and so like that's a horror story, and yet it was all like people will really surprise you being
yes,
but like he wasn't mean about it. He just had a really spicy take on language, playing it a little fast and loose with some of his descriptors. But I mean, I've been to every county in Ohio from all my years of political organizing there, and people are amazing.
They
like,
are.
99% of people are amazing.
Yes.
And like want to see other people. They might be busy. The kid might be screaming in the background. They might have a sick parent. They might be having an off day. But the vast majority of people are nice to other people when they are face to face.
Yes.
And like want you to have a good day too.
Yes. I will say, and I'm such a sap because I'm like now thinking about it, getting worked up. But, that Carri was talking about how she just is feeling like I have to do something. I have to go to Philly. And it was in response to what we're seeing in Ohio. But they're counting on really good people like Carri and I and folks who are listening to this podcast to not do anything.
Yeah.
They're hoping that this kind of hate and rage and division will kind of disgust us and push us away from entering into this sphere.
Right.
You know what I mean? And honestly, it works because I think when you do watch those images and you do watch this rhetoric, the last thing in the world you want to do is like volunteer to go, run towards the fire. It feels like it's a dumpster fire, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's easy for people to just stay away from the dumpster fire or ignore the dumpster fire. There are not many people who feel that like public service, that duty of running towards the fire to help, extinguish it. And the way that we extinguish it is to get involved. And the other thing I'll say, if folks do not have the resources to go to a battleground state, that's okay. Like there are ways that you can actually volunteer
100%
online.
Yeah.
There's ways that you can text bank, there's ways that you can do phone banking. All of the things that we're describing, you're able to do from wherever you are. But
and no matter where you are, there's a down ballot race that also needs your attention.
100%. Like Ayana was saying, I mean, there's so many races, right? Where even if you're in a state that's safe, right? A state like California, there's so many down ballot races that
huge.
Everything that we're just describing for the presidential is even more important at the local level. And so, Twigg and I, probably breaking news, but we're going to both be in Philly. And I think we'll be doing, we got to come up with a cool name, but I think it's like a Twigg and Jenkins creator style house where we are really wanting to tell the story of everything that I just described, probably very ineptly, which is like, what is this? Like, what is get out the vote?
Yeah.
What is canvassing? How is it happening? And in real time, to the degree that we're able to get real time data. I was almost thinking of it as Carri and I keep comparing to what we're doing, to like sports, right? But polls, and I agree with Carri. She was like, polls, it's not like sports because in sports terms, the Mets either won or lost the game.
Right.
And we're either 2 games back or 3 games up. It's all very real. Polls are not that. Polls are a predictor. They're just kind of like a guesstimate.
It's highly subjective.
Highly subjective guesstimate for how things are going. And that is really the only metric that the American public gets on the success of a campaign. But here's the thing, and we're going to have Tom Bonnier on to go through some of this early vote data and what he's seeing. But especially as we get closer to Election Day, we will have real data.
That's when it changes.
That's when things change. We will have real data. We will have real data from not just people like Tom Bonnier at Target Smart, but from the campaign.
Yeah.
In 2008, by Election Day, our targeting team, the morning of Election Day, we already knew that we won.
Yeah.
We already knew because we had the data from all of the early vote states. And we just saw it all and we're like, look, we hit all of our targets.
Yeah.
We're going to win.
I was in the war room in Ohio in 2008.
Yeah.
And the head of our analytics, and I can't remember her name, but she's such a legend.
Yeah.
We're all panicking because
Yeah.
turnout is flat. Like it's so low. And we're all just kind of beside ourselves. And we've been awake. We've literally been awake for 30 hours.
Yeah,
like you're on the brink of madness anyway. And then when you lose, it's just such a nightmare. And so we were all just like freaking out over the turnout numbers, like because you're getting all the reports of like, are there lines at this bellwether voting location? What's happening on the street? How many people have actually cast a ballot so far? Because the Board of Elections will release intermittent data throughout the day. And she just goes, maybe our plan worked. Because what we wanted to do is bank as many early votes as humanly possible. And she was like, maybe it's working.
Yes.
Like maybe our voters have already voted.
That's right.
Because we were still waiting for like big tranches of votes from Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati that hadn't been reported yet. And so she was just like, maybe that's why this is working. And there was this moment, and 2008 felt so destined, but also so impossible.
Yes.
And so everyone was a little bit afraid to believe that it could be going that well.
Yes.
But it was.
It was going
crazy.
that well. It was going that well everywhere.
Everywhere.
And that feeling too, the last thing I'll say to encourage people to do this, we want to be able to tell that story that it is fun, but it's especially so fulfilling.
Yeah.
When you had a hand in it. Because
this is your home.
Voter, like that one person that you drive could be the vote.
Yeah.
Like that, all of this stuff matters. Like all of it matters. Yeah. And the only way the other side wins is if we let them make us feel like we don't have power. Yeah. And that we can't really like help make the difference. Right. And so especially for young people too, I think, we're talking about sort of above and beyond. A lot of what Twigg and I have been talking about has been the campaign strategy to get these people to vote who, just aren't paying attention, who don't really care, who, have other things that they care about. And I think that is, for the most part, that is what campaigns are, media strategies and polling and all that stuff are squarely focused on. I think the thing that we sometimes forget, though, is the number one predictive success in 2008. We did this whole campaign debrief in 2008. Carson, we had so many insights and so much data from these huge field teams we built. And we were doing all this data collection. The number one predictor, or the number one reason why a Republican changed their vote to Barack Obama, they previously voted for Republican, voted for Barack Obama, is because of their children.
Yeah, man.
Because of their children, right? So, like, you think sometimes, it's like media strategies and it's this, that, and the other. And a lot of those children were volunteers for Students for Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Were in those field offices, right?
Yeah.
And like, I'm getting like emotional. I'm such a sap. But like, then their parents see that.
Yeah.
It's
not always the message. Most of the time it's the messenger.
Yes. And it's the energy. And I think, it's easy to not think that you can make an impact. I don't know why I'm getting so emotional. But you can. You really can.
Oh, honey.
I think it's sleep deprivation.
Brad is very jet lagged, but also very sweet.
Yeah.
That's very sweet.
You can. And a lot of these kids, I mean, I really do remember, like, they were the reason we won.
Yeah.
Like, kids.
They are. Yeah.
Kids who couldn't even vote.
Yeah.
They were like 16, 17 in this field office. And it's like, no, like those kids. And so we just gotta I don't know, we gotta believe that we can win. I think that's the big thing.
So sorry. I don't mean to laugh at you. It's very touching. It's very touching.
Oh, it's sleep deprivation.
I'm trying to keep it straight.
No. You should laugh. You should laugh.
I'm going to come off as such a robot.
I'm crying. Twigg and I did this. We did this pilot for a show. And the same thing happened where we're like, remember that with Danica?
We have to find that trailer.
We got to find this trailer. But it was a very similar thing happened. It was not sleep deprivation. I was literally just being so cheesy.
Yes.
And I'm like crying in front of this like candidate. And Twigg is just like looking at me. She's looking at me so confused. She's like, what is wrong with you, Brad? Like, and she like gave me a pat on the back. She's like, okay, bud, wrap it up. Anyway.
It's just not the, yeah.
Emotions,
Yeah, they're just, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, look, team, I think we're going to put some stuff on the interwebs on ways that you can volunteer, ways that you can get involved. And I do think Twig and I are serious. We're going to do a little bit of a creator house in Philly.
Content studio or something.
We're going to make it so fun. And hit us up.
Yeah.
Hit us up.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Peace.